191. The courtyard outside the dorm building basked in the late afternoon light, golden warmth stretching long shadows across the flagstones. The scent of cut grass filled the air, mixing with the metallic tang of sweat. Victor's shirt clung to his back, dark with perspiration, sleeves rolled up to the elbows as he unleashed a rhythmic storm of punches into the training dummy. Each strike was landed with purpose. His breath came heavy, focused and determined. His rusty red hair swayed with every burst of movement. On the sidelines, Irina sat quietly on a bench, holding a water bottle in both hands like a prayer. She toyed with the ends of her strawberry blonde hair, eyes following Victor with the kind of quiet adoration that lived in silence and second glances. She had brought the bottle for him. And she had been waiting for this exact moment, when he'd finish training and look at her with that rare tired smile of his. But that moment never came. Because someone else entered the scene. Chelene Foster. She was a high-ranked cadet in their batch. And unbeknownst to Victor or Irina, she had been hired by Juliana. It didn't take much to convince her. Chelene needed a very specific type of spell card. Juliana offered it to her. So, here she was. She didn't strut. She didn't announce herself. She simply existed, walking into the scene like she belonged there. Her violet hair was tied in a lazy bun, a few intentionally loose strands framing her sharp cheekbones. She carried a book in one hand and a half-whistled tune on her lips as she eased herself under the shade of an old cherry tree. Sitting cross-legged, she cracked open the book to read and leaned back comfortably, looking like a picture of effortless grace. Victor glanced once. Then again, Irina caught the second glance. And her smile faltered a little. Meanwhile, Chelene tilted her head ever so slightly, though her eyes never left the page. And then, with almost suspicious timing, the book slipped from her fingers and landed between her and Victor. She didn't look up, not until he stepped forward to retrieve it. "Oh, my, careful, handsome," she said with a soft laugh, just shy of flirtation. "You should handle books with more care. They can be dangerous." He smirked, handing it over. "Yeah, you planning to weaponize it?" Chelene flashed him a grin that seemed to hold 100 secrets. "Only if you don't return it nicely." Irina scowled and looked down, her grip tightening around the bottle. When she looked up again, Victor was still watching Chelene. That was the first crack. The stage was set now. The game would begin soon. Evening settled across the academy like a blanket. The courtyard had long since emptied, save for Irina still sitting there alone on the bench, hugging her knees to her chest. She stared down the path Victor had taken earlier, the way he and Chelene walked off together, to help her return that book to the dorm library, he'd said casually. The lie stung more than it should have. Soon, a voice reached her. "Hey, you okay?" It was gentle, almost hesitant. And it belonged to one of her childhood friends, Ivan. He stood a few feet away, hands tucked into his pockets. His eyes were soft, softer than she ever remembered. Actually, she'd been noticing a lot of changes in Ivan lately. It started a little over a month ago. By now, he was like a completely different person. He dressed better, looked taller, carried himself with more confidence. And, for the love of all that was holy, he'd finally replaced those oversized glasses. Irina sighed and forced a smile. Of course, just tired. But she was a bad liar. Or maybe he was just too good at seeing through her. So he sat down, close, but not touching. Minutes passed. Her silence cracked first. "Maybe he doesn't even like me," she whispered, eyes glistening. She didn't need to elaborate. He had always known about how she felt for Victor. "Maybe I'm just fooling myself." Ivan didn't rush to comfort her. Timing is everything in a conversation, Juliana had told him over and over. So he waited, adjusted his new glasses, then shook his head, slowly. "That's just not true," he said. "Anyone would be lucky to have someone like you, Irina." His voice was barely a whisper, but it anchored her. Her shoulders trembled as she began to cry. Ivan reached out, gently, cautiously, and touched her hand. She didn't pull away. In that moment, the idea of safety took shape in her mind. And it wore his face. Juliana was waiting, leaning against the wall outside his room. She flipped her notebook shut as Ivan approached. The moonlight flooding in from the windows caught the sharp gleam in her eyes. "You did better than I thought," she said. "Natural talent, I guess." Ivan shifted uncomfortably. "I barely did anything." "Exactly," Juliana murmured. "That's what makes it perfect." She stepped forward, flipping the notebook open again. Written on it were bullet points, diagrams, and psychological triggers. This girl, she was treating this thing like some kind of war tactic. Now we begin phase 2, she pointed to a chart in her notes. Create routine dependency. Send her morning texts. Good night check-ins. Be the first and last thought of her day. She flipped the page. Give her emotional highs. Comfort her. Then disappear. Make her miss you. Then return. Make relief feel like love. Her voice remained steady, clinical, like she'd done this 1,000 times before. But don't disappear for too long, she added. There are plenty of people waiting to dry her tears. Ivan frowned. Juliana didn't slow down, and never insult Victor. He is in her memories. And memories are precious. Instead, let her make the comparisons on her own. That's how you win. Ask questions. Let her do the math. Say things like, do you think someone who really loves you would make you cry this often? She let that sink in for a moment before speaking further. Next, you implant the fear. Ask her things like, what if he only sees you as a sister? Or, what if you're just convenient? Ivan looked away. Juliana stepped closer. Her voice softened slightly. I know you don't like this, Ivan. But love isn't flowers and songs. It's chains. Addiction. Knowing exactly which wounds to kiss, and which to leave open. She placed a hand on his shoulder. By the time we're done, she won't know how to breathe without you. I promise that. Ivan hesitated. I don't know if it's right. Juliana smiled. You'll know when you win. Weeks passed. Victor and Chelene had started sharing meals at the cafeteria. They laughed in quiet tones, heads leaned close. Chelene's smile came easy, like she'd known him forever. Irina, 2 tables away, laughed too loudly at her friend's jokes, pretending she didn't see. Ivan sat beside her, quiet, present, safe. He never spoke ill of Victor. He only asked the smallest, gentlest questions, like the one he was about to ask now. Is that how you'd want someone to make you feel if they loved you? Irina didn't answer, but later that night, she texted him 3 paragraphs about her day. About how grateful she was for him being there. About how much he meant to her. Then she apologized for being such a burden. Ivan read it 3 times before replying with a voice note, you could never be a burden to me. Phase 2 began in earnest. The love bombing. Ivan brought her coffee in the mornings when they met up, made just the way she liked it. He gave her compliments, celebrated her smallest victories. He'd say things like, you beat your running time again. I'm not surprised, but I am proud. Or, it took me 3 weeks to even understand the basics of tensor calculus, and you did it in 1. You know, I always knew you were hiding how smart you were. The results were obvious. She started texting him first. Smiling wider when she saw him. Trusting him with her worst days. Then came the push and pull. He'd leave her on read for hours. Exit hangouts early. Sometimes he wouldn't even show up. Gave her neutral reactions when she opened up. The ache in her heart grew slowly. So did her reliance on his return. On his comfort. Irina's feelings twisted inward. She wasn't over Victor, but she'd started looking forward to Ivan's smile more than Victor's silence. She hugged him more, laughed a little easier around him. And Juliana watched it all from afar. But it wasn't fast enough for her. After all, 3 weeks had passed since she started playing this game. And the pawns were still moving too slow. So she added a new variable. One afternoon, in the common room of their dorm building, Ivan was laughing at something Irina had said. Her face glowed with joy. Then, Juliana entered. Her hair was messy, her skin glowing. She wore Ivan's jacket, the one she'd practically stripped off him just minutes earlier. The poor boy was confused, but too scared to protest. She walked over, took a sip from Ivan's cup, and flopped into the chair beside him like it was the most natural thing for her. Throwing an arm over his shoulder, she dragged a nail down his chest and purred softly, You forgot your jacket at mine last night, Ivan. Ivan stiffened. Juliana smiled lazily, then turned to Irina, who sat frozen across from them. Oh, hello, didn't see you there. I'm Juliana Blade, Ivan's, well, girlfriend would be too far. Let's just say I'm his friend. Irina's voice cracked. You're joking, right? Juliana tilted her head, her smirk sharpening. Why, what's there to joke about? Before Irina could respond, the white-haired beauty patted Ivan's chest like she was marking her territory, handed back the jacket, and walked away. Irina stared after her in stunned silence. Her mouth hung slightly open. That night, Irina's texts came fast and furious. Where are you? Why didn't you answer my calls earlier? Are you hanging out with that slut again? You know she has a reputation, right? She was even involved with Professor Rexard before he disappeared. That girl is bad news. Just stay away from her. Okay, why are you still not answering? Ivan. Ivan stared at the screen with a detached gaze. Then smiled. He wanted to answer her. To give her calm reassurances. To tell her he was there. But now wasn't the time for reassurances. Now was the time to end the chase. 192. The downpour had started 3 days ago and hadn't stopped since. Raindrops fell and hissed against the tiled rooftop in an endless whisper, drowning the world below in quiet grief. Ivan sat beneath the narrow concrete overhang beside the stairwell, shoulders damp, collar clinging to his skin. City lights shimmered in puddles at his feet, blurred by the drizzle and the exhaustion in his eyes. He didn't look up when the rooftop door creaked open. Didn't flinch at the echo of soaked shoes slapping against wet tile. He already knew. She was coming. He hadn't answered any of her texts or calls since that evening, since Juliana pulled that stunt with his jacket. Irina stumbled forward like a ghost dragging herself through the storm. Her coat hung off one shoulder, hair plastered to her face. Her fingers trembled, clutching uselessly at her sleeves like they could shield her from the rain. When she reached him, she didn't speak right away. She only stood there, breathing hard, wet, shaking, and splintering like glass under a flame. Then, why didn't you tell me? Her voice fractured on the first syllable. She sounded like something broken trying to remember how to sound whole. Ivan slowly turned his head. Tell you what? He asked, quiet and unassuming, as if he hadn't spent the last hour rehearsing this exact moment in his head. Irina's face twisted, not in anger, but in devastation. That you were leaving me too, she said, and the words hit like a collapsing dam. Victor's already gone, and now you. She choked. You haven't even been talking to me anymore. He stood without a word. Took off his jacket, wet, but warmer than the wind, and draped it over her shoulders. His hands lingered, brushing the curve of her arms, holding her gently. I never wanted to leave you, Irina, he murmured slowly. But I can't keep chasing you forever. I like you. I've liked you since we were kids. You know that, but Victor's always been the center of your world. I can't keep competing with him for your heart. I'm just tired. And that was all it took. All it took to end the game. Her hands shot forward, clutching his shirt like she'd drown without it. She buried her face into his chest, and her sobs sounded like someone confessing their sins to God. I need you, her whisper came out desperate and strangled and hoarse. I don't care about Victor anymore. I don't care about anything, just, stay. Please don't leave me. Ivan didn't speak, didn't breathe, he only held her tighter. And over her shoulder, his eyes stayed wide and distant, victorious, maybe. But hollow, and just a little afraid of himself. 2 days later, the clang of metal echoed through one of the training halls. Victor moved through his sparring match like he was born to fight, quick, effortless, unrelenting. Drawing out his origin card, he shot 2 beams of searing light from his eyes. His opponent hit the dirt, too slow to block the final strike. Victor stepped back, panting, chest rising with the high of the win. But when he looked around, she wasn't there. His breath caught. She always watched him train. Always clapped. Always waved that ridiculous water bottle covered in stickers. But today, there was no one waiting for him on the sidelines. No Irina, no smile, no familiar spark of admiration in her gaze. Later, he found her in the corridor between classes, laughing radiantly and standing far too close to Ivan. Ivan's hand brushed hers in a way that seemed casual and a little intimate. She didn't pull away. Victor froze mid-step. When did they get so close? Irina, he called. She turned, blinked, then smiled. But the smile didn't reach her eyes. It was polite. It was careful. It wasn't the smile he remembered. Hey, he said, scratching the back of his neck. I've got a rank match tomorrow. You coming to watch, right? Irina hesitated, and that hesitation said more than any answer could. I promised Ivan I'd help him study, she said. Maybe next time. Victor paused, caught off guard. Then nodded like it didn't matter. Like something inside him hadn't just split clean through. He watched them walk away. And for the first time in his life, he realized he had lost something he didn't even know he had. The rain had stopped 4 days ago, but the cold hadn't gone. It clung to the skin, damp and quiet, like the aftertaste of something sweet gone sour. Ivan sat, alone on the rooftop garden, the same one where Irina had confessed to him with trembling hands and a racing heart. Now, he just sat there, arms limp over his knees, eyes distant and hollow. Irina had kissed him. She had chosen him over Victor. He had won, finally. So why did this victory feel like a lie? The door creaked open behind him. Juliana stepped onto the rooftop with soft, unhurried steps. She didn't ask if she could sit beside him, she just did. No words were spoken at first. Then she broke the silence with a little smirk, voice smooth as silk and just as cutting. "So, how does victory taste?" she drawled, already knowing the answer. Ivan didn't look at her. His voice was low and tired. Bitter. That made her smile. Of course it did. He didn't flinch when she leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his. She tilted her head, like a curious cat examining a broken toy. "Funny. You were glowing a few days ago. All that scheming, the subtle nudges, the fake vulnerability, it looked like you were enjoying yourself." He didn't deny it, because she was right. The thrill had been real. The chase, the illusion of becoming something Irina needed, had given him purpose. Something electric to cling to. But now he felt nothing, like a magician who'd pulled off the perfect trick, only to realize the audience was blind. It was so easy. I wanted her to love me the moment I understood what love was. I've been doing everything to make that happen since I was, 10? I've been chasing her practically all my life. And it took just 6 weeks to fulfill my greatest wish. He scoffed, finally turning to face her. His eyes were empty in a way that no light could fill. She loves me now. I know she does. I made sure of it. I hit every mark. But I don't feel it. Not the way I thought I would. Juliana exhaled slowly through her nose, amused. Her gaze was sharp, like a scalpel. Not meant to wound, just to cut clean. Of course you don't. She rested her chin on her palm, azure eyes gleaming in the moonlight. You engineered a response, Ivan. Classical conditioning, stimulus, reward, emotional proximity, manufactured crisis. You knew which wires to pull, and you pulled them. But now you're surprised the puppet isn't magic. He flinched, not outwardly, but something deep down winced. She leaned back, folding her arms behind her head as if watching clouds. You can't feel it anymore, she said, almost casually, because you know how it works. That's the problem with people like us. Once you learn the rules behind the illusion, the magic dies. It's the cost of clarity. He was quiet. She went on. What you call love is just your brain concocting a cocktail of emotion drugs. Dopamine, oxytocin, attachment theories wrapped in fairy tales. He frowned slightly, but it felt real before. With her. He didn't finish. Juliana smiled faintly, not kind, not cruel, just knowing. It felt real because you believed it was. You wanted to be chosen, truly chosen, out of want, not need. But Irina chose you because you made her. The chase gave you purpose. The hunger gave you a thrill. But once you caught her, the thrill died. And so did the hunger. This wasn't the soulmate love you dreamt of. This was a story you wrote with the ending already planned. And now you're just reading the last page, wondering why it didn't surprise you. She tapped her temple. It's basic psychoanalysis, Ivan. I taught you all this. Ivan's throat felt dry. He swallowed. So what now? Now, she gave him a look. Now you rot in awareness like the rest of us. Rest of us? He raised an eyebrow. People who are too smart for their own good, she replied. That made him laugh. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. You wanted her to love you. And she does. But now that you know how easily it can be manufactured, how fragile and programmable feelings are, you can't believe in it anymore. The magic's gone. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Juliana's voice softened. Because once you know how the trick works, you stop clapping. It's not real anymore. It's technique, timing, leverage. It's like once you realize manipulation is real, and how it works, you start seeing it everywhere. And it stops working on you. She paused. Then, you can't unknow that, Ivan. But isn't that what you wanted? Isn't this the happy ending you were aiming for? Here it is. Enjoy it. He stared into the night, the garden below blurred by fog. Somewhere down there, Irina was probably sleeping peacefully. Probably dreaming of him. And he was up here. Feeling nothing. Just a vacuum where the rush used to be. Will I ever feel that way again? He asked. I don't know, Juliana shrugged. But I'll tell you this. You still care for her. You still love her, even if it doesn't excite you anymore. Your feelings are still real. And in that way, you're already luckier than me. Ivan frowned slightly, but before he could speak, she stood up and brushed the rainwater from her coat. Good night, little monster. He looked up at her, the corner of his mouth twitching. That's what I am now. Juliana paused at the door. Actually, you were always one. You just finally caught up to yourself. She left him with that. And as the door clicked shut behind her, Ivan sat alone on the rooftop, staring into a world that suddenly felt colder, not because of the rain or the wind, but because he understood now. Love had been a game, just like everything else in life. And he had learned the rules too well. 193. It was the middle of June. Winter had arrived on the Ascent Isles. Yes, winter. In June, while the rest of the central safe zone was being baked under a cruel summer sun every single day, we Apex cadets up here in the sky were layering on jackets and scraping frost off our windows. The streets were always covered in snow, and the training grounds had to be cleared before drills. Someone in my dorm building had already slipped on the stairs this morning. Twice. No, it wasn't me. And yet, despite the cold afternoons and freezing nights, I couldn't just wrap myself in blankets and hibernate like a brown bear, no matter how much I wanted to. Because half-yearly exams were starting tomorrow. Everyone was busy, either studying or training. Even the main characters were occupied with their side quests. Juliana was still helping Ivan with his love life. It had been 6 weeks since I assigned her that little project, and if I had to guess, she was probably wrapping it up by now. Michael, Alexia, Lily, and Kong, my former squad members, were out on another mission. Yes, I had left their squad. Some random healer had taken my place as their 5th member. It was my decision to leave. I figured Michael wasn't comfortable with me there, and I definitely wasn't comfortable being on the same team as Lily. So it worked out for all of us. Honestly, it was better for my mental health to stay away from the heroes anyway. Dealing with them was too much drama. And too much work. In the last 2 months alone, they had gone on 2 missions, 2 whole missions. Without even a proper break in between. It was like they were trying to work themselves to death. I could never. So, I decided to step out. As for the villains, well, I wasn't sure what my twin sister was up to these days. But knowing her, she was probably studying too. What else would she be doing? The royal twins, Willem and Alice, were busy participating in sparring matches and issuing open challenges every other week. They had been the talk of the academy for quite some time now. But I couldn't care less about them, either. Not right now, at least. Because right now, I should have been in bed. Under 5 blankets. With hot cocoa. Pretending to revise my syllabus while actually contemplating the meaninglessness of exams. Instead, I was outside. In the snow, standing before the half-incinerated remains of Wing 3B of my dormitory building. And my ear was being violently twisted by none other than Vereshia Morrigan, the esteemed Cadet Council President, 3rd-year ace, and, as I had just found out, an expert in the art of torture. "Do you feel remorse yet? Do you?" she hissed, still pinching and rotating my ear like a stress ball. "Lady Vereshia," I groaned, trying to pull away. "I need that ear, it balances my face. And how the hell are you so strong?" She ignored me. Of course she did. 3 months, Samael. 3 whole months. I was going to get to it. I yelped as she gave another twist. Eventually, before I could say anything else, she grabbed my chin with her free hand and made me look forward. In front of us, the building's wing looked like it had lost a fight with a dragon. The windows were shattered, the walls were half caved in, and the concrete was charred. Someone had thoughtfully hung a hand-painted sign at the entrance that read, "Caution. Do not enter. Destroyed by our ace." "I'm going to ask you once," Vereshia said, barely keeping her voice low and steady, "why hasn't the reconstruction started?" I let out a long sigh. I may or may not have forgotten about it. Vereshia gave me a deadpan look that could have flattened mountains. At times like these, her red eyes looked even more threatening than usual. I started sweating. Okay, in my defense, I didn't actually forget about it. I just kept delaying it. Because, in my heart, I felt like it was a future me problem. Well, future me had officially arrived. And Vereshia was dragging him around like a delinquent puppy in need of rehouse training. "Samael, this isn't a joke," she gritted her teeth and finally let go of my ear. "There will be a surge of exchange cadets right after exams. We'll need every single dorm building, including this pile of regrets." Okay, fine, I rolled my eyes like I was the one doing her a favor instead. "I'll handle it. Contractor, blueprints, funding, bureaucratic nightmares, all of it." Vereshia gave me a long look, then nodded. "Good, but I'm not lifting bricks." I raised a finger. She scoffed. "I wouldn't trust you with them. And I want naming rights." I lifted a second finger. Vereshia squinted. "Naming rights." I nodded with a cheeky grin. "I'm thinking something like the Ashes, a Wing Reborn. It has a mythical ring to it. Quote. Absolutely not, she denied. I wasn't discouraged. How about the Samael Center for Responsible Decision Making? She turned away and started walking. Unfazed, I continued pressing on. Dorm infernum. No. Room temperature. Hell, wait, what about the smoke and wing? Lady Verishia, come on, don't walk away. But she was already gone. I turned back to the ruins and shoved my freezing hands into my coat pockets. Well, I muttered, this will teach me not to keep ignoring my problems. It didn't teach me. After a bit of calm silence, I was also about to walk back off when my phone buzzed. I looked it up and scowled instantly. Cadet Samael Theosbane, your exam schedule has been finalized. Subject 1. Hunter History, Culture, and Ethics Advanced. Time: 7 a.m. Location: Lecture Hall Gamma. Note: late arrivals will not be admitted. Great. Now I had only 16 hours to cry, pretend to sleep, and wholeheartedly curse whatever lunatic decided that a subject about memorizing the names and heroic deeds of prominent hunters would be a good idea. The morning of the exam came like any other. I woke up in a panic. Not because of the exam. No, that would have been responsible. I woke up because someone was screaming in the hallway. I opened the door and saw a half-dressed cadet sprinting past, shoes in one hand, tie in the other, yelling something about the discovery of time distortion territories and their effects on our world. Another guy was furiously banging on a vending machine by the elevators. I need my pre-exam Lucky Bean cake. I need it. I need it. And someone else, no idea who, had apparently decided now was a good time to summon a spirit beast using his innate power. His summoned creature was an ethereal bear. Yes, a literal bear made out of spectral energy. Wearing a tie, these kids had truly lost their minds. I hate this place, I mumbled while brushing my teeth with the sort of numbness only academia can produce. By the time I made it to Lecture Hall Gamma, the exam was minutes from starting. The room was freezing. Naturally, the only warmth came from the collective suffering of 72 cadets huddled together like sheep awaiting slaughter. At the front stood our invigilator, Instructor Emeritus Helkin Griven, who looked like he hadn't smiled since the invention of ink. Hunter culture was actually Professor Rexard's subject. He was supposed to be here. But since he'd, mysteriously, disappeared, Instructor Griven was here to fill the role. His eyes scanned the cadets with the kind of quiet intensity that suggested he'd hunt down our entire bloodline if we so much as thought about cheating. Take your seats, he droned. Don't talk. Don't draw any cards. Don't even blink. He handed out the question papers with the same energy one might use to distribute cursed objects. I took a deep breath and started reading mine. Hunter History, Culture, and Ethics Advanced. Instructions. Answer all questions. Use only the space provided. Do not summon sentient entities for help. Do not read minds, either. Just don't use your powers. Question 1. Who was the first hunter to sail the Sea of Screams and successfully cross into the land ruled by the dying sun? 10 marks. Question 2. What was the name of the first southern monarch? What were his great accomplishments that are remembered even today? And why is his reign considered a failure? 10 marks. Question 3. If you were in place of Thera the Great, would you have sacrificed thousands of low-ranked hunters just to save 7 S-rankers during the siege of Crown of Thorns? Justify your answer. 30 marks. Question 4. Why are love potions illegal in all safe zones? Trick question. Is it? 5 marks. That was just the first set. We'd be given 3 more. 1 every hour. Okay, I muttered, chewing my quill. I know one of these. Maybe. A girl behind me let out a quiet sob. She sounded like she had already lost all hope. Someone 2 rows ahead tried to cheat, only for his answer sheet to burst into flames. Instructor Griven didn't even blink. Go ahead. Try it again. He didn't try it again. Neither did any of us. 30 minutes in, I'd written 4 paragraphs, doodled a sword, blacked out for 2 minutes, and written, ask Julie later, in the corner of 3 questions. At one point, a cadet across the room raised her hand and questioned, Instructor, hypothetically, if we're possessed by a senior cadet without our consent. You'll fail, Griven said flatly. But it'll happen without our consent. Tough luck. I went back to my paper, trying to remember how Thera the Great, a renowned huntress who lived about a century ago, sacrificed thousands of men in her army just to save a few strong awakened, and if I'd do the same in her place. My honest answer would have offended quite a few people, so I went with the morally correct one. No, I wouldn't do it. Yes, every man is equal and we shouldn't prioritize the strong. Things like that. By the end of the exam, my hand was cramping, my brain felt like a toasted marshmallow, and I was pretty sure I'd hallucinated the last half hour. I handed in my answer sheet with all the dignity of a man walking to his execution. "Sleep well, cadet?" Griven asked as I passed, rubbing my tired eyes. I blinked. "You're not allowed to use sarcasm on cadets as an instructor. It's not in the academy code." He raised an eyebrow. "Neither is arson. And yet here you are." "Oh wow, wow." Suddenly everyone remembered I committed arson. Huh. Make one mistake and society won't ever let you live it down. Shaking my head, I left the hall, shoulders sagging, stomach growling, soul hovering just slightly outside my body. One exam down, 5 more to go, and then, several more practicals. Gods, I hate academy life. 194. It was day 7. The theory exams were finally over. Unfortunately, that meant it was now time for the practicals. We didn't even get a single day's rest before the academy stopped pretending it didn't want us dead and started testing our physical limits. Everyone had a different exam schedule depending on the order in which they'd chosen their classes. Since I'd picked physical conditioning and advanced combat mechanics as my first 2 physical subjects, my initial practical was a combined assessment for both. Which was why, along with 200 other cadets, I now found myself standing in an open arena on one of the orbiting islands. The rules for today's exam were simple. 1. Don't accidentally kill your fellow cadets. 2. Don't break the arena too much. 3. Points will be deducted if emergency healers are called in. So, naturally, someone exploded in the first 5 minutes. "Medic," a voice yelled from somewhere behind the bleachers. "I'm fine," came the reply, followed by a wheezing cough and the unmistakable sound of someone vomiting. I couldn't see who it was. Because I myself was currently staring down a harrowing monster, a towering creature with the face of a bull, the torso of a man, and the legs of a horse, wielding twin glaives. I sighed, wondering what series of life choices had brought me to this point. The creature was a summoned spirit beast, conjured by one of the acquire cards of our examiner, Instructor Kane Reichardt. All across the arena, 7 other cadets were locked in duels with similar summoned creatures. Whenever a fight ended, whether by victory or defeat, the next cadet would step down into the arena to take their place. "Cadet Samael Theosbane," came the examiner's voice over the speakers. "Begin. Your objective is to defeat the creature or survive 10 of its blows, either by dodging or tanking." I looked in his direction and raised a hand. The examiner stood at the far end of the arena, on a raised dais, observing us with calm and cold eyes, his bald head gleaming under the winter sun. "One quick question before we start," I said calmly. "Is this thing calibrated for psychological warfare? Because I swear it just looked at me like it agreed my father was right to abandon me." Instructor Reichardt stared at me with the dead eyes of a man who hadn't laughed in 17 years. He didn't respond. Of course he didn't. Before I could say anything else, the beast lunged at me. I turned my focus back to it and dove sideways, activating my battle reflex card to instantly boost my reaction speed and agility. The glaive sliced through the air where my head had been a heartbeat ago, cleaving into the ground with a sharp crack that sent fragments of stone flying. I hit the ground in a roll, came up on one knee, and clicked my tongue. Yup, that thing was faster than it looked. It was supposed to be a minor beast. But both its speed and strength were terrifying. And to make matters worse, it was using weapons. I had to be careful. Nodding to myself, I rushed forward. Meanwhile, its hooves slammed against the arena floor as it twisted its massive body with an unnatural jerky motion, both glaives spinning in a deadly arc. The muscles in its bull-like neck rippled with power. Its eyes glowed with a primal fury that sent a cold shiver down my spine. I ducked beneath the first glaive, sidestepped to evade the second, and slipped into its blind spot. A card shimmered into existence over my shoulder, Fire Arrow. Instantly, searing flames roared to life around my right hand, coalescing into the shape of a blazing arrow in my grip. I whipped my arm forward with all the might I could muster and hurled the fiery projectile at the beast's face. It stepped back and lifted one of its glaives to block. The arrow struck the steel and exploded in a burst of flame and smoke, obscuring the creature from view. But I already knew it wasn't enough to bring it down. As the smoke parted, the beast lowered its weapon, revealing its enraged bull face once more. Only to find empty space where I'd been. Because I had already moved. And right now, I was right behind it. The moment it turned its head in confusion, another fire arrow whistled through the air, this one aimed at the back of its knee. The explosion was immediate and violent. Its horse leg buckled as its kneecap shattered, sending the beast crashing down with an agonized shriek. It dropped to one knee. You see, it was too tall for me to hit properly. So, I brought it down to my level. Sure, I could have just killed it from behind with a clean headshot. But doing it this way was way more dramatic. The beast let out a growl so deep and guttural it could have rattled bones. Snarling, it spun on its one good knee and swept its glaive in a wide arc, aiming to take my head clean off. But its blade sliced through nothing but air. Because, once again, I had moved. I had leapt high, right above its head. Sensing me overhead, the beast looked up, just in time to see the final fire arrow descending. It struck the dead center between its eyes. Boom, and the explosion tore open its skull, splattering brain matter in every direction. By the time its limp body hit the ground with a dull thud, I had easily landed beside it. Exhaling softly, I lowered my hand and dismissed my cards. The examiner, Instructor Kane Reichardt, gave me a slow clap. Samael Theos Bane, passed. Bonus points for flair, minus points for unnecessarily dragging out the fight. Next. Yeah, I regret nothing, I scoffed and elegantly walked off the field. But instead of returning to my rooms, I decided to stick around and watch some of the other duels. There was no specific reason. I just wanted to see others fail and enjoy the feeling of superiority. And for about 5 minutes, I did enjoy it. I saw one cadet attempt a flying side kick. He tripped on the landing, punched himself in the face with his own knee, and was gently backhanded into a wall. Thankfully, he managed to clutch at the last possible moment and pass the test. Another cadet summoned a lightning-based spell, but she forgot that water conducts electricity. She ended up electrocuting herself and the beast she was battling. Then there was a guy who summoned a support card clearly meant for teams, something about fortifying allied defenses while fighting alone. As expected, nothing happened. He just stood there glowing blue while the monster he was facing looked confused, then offended. Finally, it punched him. By this point, I was laughing hysterically. Watching these fools fail so pathetically inflated my ego, fueled my narcissism, and, as a bonus, entertained me. I felt smug, until the main characters showed up. It started with Alexia. With her lush orange hair and perfect posture, she used a vaguely messianic aura that made you feel like clapping even when she was just tying her shoelaces. She stepped into the arena confidently, facing something that looked like a terrifying fusion of a lion and a drake as her summoned beast opponent. The creature hissed and lunged at her as if ready to end worlds. But then, mid-leap, it hesitated. I wish I were exaggerating. The beast really hesitated. Alexia just drew her origin card and smirked. The beast actually flinched, turned its head slightly, and backed up a step. Meanwhile, she raised her fist slowly, almost politely. One strike later, it crumpled like paper. The stands erupted in cheers and applause. A few guys even started shouting marriage proposals. I blinked. Okay, now she's just showing off. Next came Michael Godswill. The protagonist, unlike the rest of us mere mortals, walked into the arena like he was heading to the kitchen for a snack. His jacket fluttered dramatically, even without any wind. Scientists are still trying to explain how. He didn't size up his beast. He didn't even use any cards. He simply took out his sword, disappeared, reappeared behind the creature, and then the creature fell apart in 2 pieces, like it had only just remembered it was already dead. The whole event lasted about 20 seconds. The audience barely reacted. Everyone was stunned. One cadet took off his hat and held it to his chest as if we'd just witnessed a moment of silence. Oh, come on, I muttered. Kong Tae Jin showed up next. That guy didn't even use a weapon. He deployed a few enhancement cards and walked headfirst toward his opponent. The beast, a brute of a gorilla centaur hybrid, looked menacingly at Kong and roared. Kong roared back, ducked under an incoming attack, wrapped his arms around it, and suplexed the creature into the arena floor. Yes, that's exactly what happened. He literally suplexed a 2-ton creature like it owed him money. The beast didn't get up. Kong dusted off his hands and walked away. One guy stood up and screamed, "Brew!" so loudly that someone threw a shoe at him. By now, I could no longer pretend I wasn't mildly irritated by how competent the main characters were. And Juliana was the final nail in the emotional coffin. She sauntered into the arena with the kind of bored elegance that suggested she was out for a lazy walk rather than fighting a monstrous creature. Her opponent was a giant scaled panther with smoke for fur and venom dripping from its claws. Juliana blinked at it, rolled her eyes, and then reached into her coat, pulling out a kunai. Then another, and another. I counted 7. I stopped counting after 16. The panther lunged desperately, but Juliana just kept throwing one kunai after the next. The final one plunged between the beast's eyes, killing it. By the time its corpse hit the ground, she was already walking off the field, looking vaguely annoyed that she had to exert any effort. The crowd went feral. Cadets were shouting. Someone even began chanting her name. A guy 2 rows behind me exclaimed, "That's my future wife," only to be hit by his actual girlfriend with a water bottle. I stood there, hands in my pockets, nodding slowly as if to say, "Ah yes, my peers. Fellow exceptional individuals." Inside, I was dying. None of the heroes overshadowed me, technically. But they matched me, quite easily, might I add. It was a cruel and humbling realization. I wasn't really the main character in this story. They were. My smugness wilted, my ego limped, and with a sigh deeper than my despair, I turned to walk back toward my dorm. 195. 6 more days had passed. Almost all our practical exams were over. All but one, the Spirit Realm simulation. Since the whole purpose of that class was to prepare cadets for the harrowing threats lurking in the Spirit Realm, it made sense that our final exam would take place inside it. Yes, inside the actual Spirit Realm. Not a simulation dome. And naturally, our examiner would be Celine Valkrin. Tomorrow morning, she'd take us back to her sanctuary. Once there, we'd get a full day to rest before she'd assign us our objectives. We wouldn't be thrown into untamed wilds. Not with her around, and not with the exam happening in the bounds of her own sanctuary. There wouldn't be any real dangers. Of course, that didn't mean the exam would be easy. Or safe. It would still be difficult. Still dangerous. But that was tomorrow. There was still some time for it. So right now, instead of stressing about it like my peers, I was sitting cross-legged in the middle of my living room, doing what I'd been doing for the last few weeks, shattering essence stones and trying to break through my soul rank. Each time I cracked one of those glowing crystals, raw essence spilled out, and I absorbed it using my circulation technique. My mind had gone numb. My hands trembled from the countless stones I'd broken. My breathing was ragged from how close I was. Close to ascension, close to shattering my current soul rank. A storm was raging inside me. And it was only getting louder. I could feel it. So much essence was constantly clashing inside me that I could feel it, psychically, yes, but also physically. The pressure was supposed to be spiritual. It was supposed to be in my soul. But it felt visceral, like my bones were humming. Like thunder was rolling through my bloodstream. I was still a C ranker. C rankers weren't supposed to feel essence like this. Not directly, not naturally, but right now, I could. That's how close I was. And then, after cracking a few more stones, something inside me snapped all of a sudden. Gah! It hit me like lightning. A white-hot surge of agony erupted in my solar plexus, right where my essence pool was. Coo! My breath hitched. I choked on it. My vision blurred. The world swam, and every nerve in my body lit up like wildfire. I collapsed backward, eyes squeezed, body drenched in sweat, every muscle twitching. My heart pounded so fast it felt like it would punch through my ribs. I couldn't even breathe properly, only taking in short ragged gasps, like I was being crushed from the inside out. It lasted only a few minutes, but the sensation devoured me. Then, slowly, it faded. The pain didn't vanish all at once. It merely receded, pulled back like the tide. And in its place, something new took hold. Stillness, weightlessness, power. I opened my eyes, took a few shallow breaths, and felt everything in my surroundings more thoroughly. Not just the room around me, like the chair in the corner or the low flicker of the electric fireplace, but also inside me. Every tendon, every muscle fiber, every vein, pulsing with new energy. My soul felt expanded. Like I'd been peering through a pinhole, and now the blindfold had been torn away. There was space inside me I hadn't known existed, deep, vast, and awake. And the essence, I could sense it now. Not as an idea, not something vague or metaphysical. I could sense its swirling currents in the air, drifting like embers on a breeze. And when I breathed in, I didn't just absorb it, I guided it inside me. Easily. What the? I blinked, my breath catching somewhere between a laugh and a gasp. I'd felt essence before. I could manipulate it before with my circulation technique. But not like this. This was different. I wasn't using my breath to control the flow. I was commanding it with a thought. Not forcing, compelling. I could guide this mythical energy. Instinctively, it responded to me. I reached out with my will, and it moved. It listened. I lifted my hand and, with a flicker of intent, pulled a thread of essence from my core. It traveled up my arm and reinforced my fingers. I'd never been able to strengthen such small parts of my body before. Not like this. I couldn't even feel this power before. And now it felt addicting, like touching lightning without the burn. I guided the flow downward, into my chest, through my spine, and into my legs. I could feel it fortifying me everywhere it traveled, muscles, joints, even the fragile ligaments between bones. My legs buzzed with strength. My arms felt lighter, stronger. I could feel the explosive force beneath my skin. It felt raw and untamed. This is so fucking cool. I stood with a laugh and it felt wrong. Not because I was unsteady, but because I wasn't. There was no weakness, no ache in my knees, no stiffness in my joints. My body moved like it had been reforged. The sluggish weight I hadn't even realized I'd been dragging around was now gone. I clenched my fists and heard the subtle creak of essence-woven bone. I inhaled and the air didn't just enter me. It welcomed me. No, it fed me. And I felt something else, too. The world, it was different now. Sharper, brighter, more alive, more colorful. My heart thudded, slow and sure now. The storm was still raging inside me. But it didn't hurt anymore. Now, I could control that storm. It was done. I had broken through. I wasn't AC Rancor anymore. I could feel it without even looking. But I checked to confirm anyway. Name, Samael Kaiser Theosbane. Spirit Essence, 1050 thousandths. Soul Rank, B. Absorb 49,000 Essence to level up. Soul Potential, SS. Origin Card, Matterweave. Acquired Cards, Quick Strike Common, Piercing Bolt Common, Battle Reflex Common, Flame Lash Common, Bleeding Edge Common, Fire Arrow Common, Barrier Breaker Common, Vortex Pull Common. Oh, I raised an eyebrow in surprise. Matterweave, the name of my origin card had changed from Materiokinesis to Matterweave. I wasn't shocked by it. It wasn't anything unheard of. An origin card's name is derived from the rune etched on its surface. The appraisal card reads that rune and translates its meaning into the user's preferred language. And as a person's soul rank evolves, so does their origin card. Its rune changes, along with its powers. Consequently, its name changes as well. So, since the name of my origin card shifted from Materiokinesis, indicative of the crude, raw manipulation of matter, to Matterweave, which felt more elegant and intricate, I knew I had definitely received a buff. But what exactly was the nature of that buff? I had no idea. I would have to head down to the private training hall to find out for myself. Nothing beats first-hand experience, after all. I stretched once more, relishing the subtle crack of my joints as they realigned with divine precision. Right, I muttered, clapping my hands once. Training hall time. I turned, took a single step, and froze, because out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. And for some reason, I stopped. I mean, yes, I'd seen myself before. Daily, in fact, occasionally shirtless, often smug, sometimes both, but this time was different. I took a step closer. Then another. Then leaned in like I was inspecting a suspicious artifact. Well, hello there, I whispered suggestively. My reflection stared back with dangerous levels of charisma. My skin was glowing, like I'd moisturized with the tears of angels. My hair was thicker, shinier, bouncier. Was it also glossier? My eyes, on the other hand, had this unnatural clarity now. Brighter, sharper, sparkling like I had a beauty filter on. I blinked, then smirked. My God, I look like the final boss of a dating sim. I did a slow spin. No cape, no flashy new outfit. I wasn't even wearing a proper shirt, just a sleeveless vest. But something about my looks now screamed, "You can't afford to gaze at me, peasant." I flexed my fingers and casually struck a half-heroic pose. That's it, I'm a problem now. I mean, I was hot before. But now I was downright a jade beauty. Then I leaned in again, real serious, and whispered to my reflection, "You glorious bastard. Don't let anyone tell you you're not the main character." With a smirk, I turned away while sighing dramatically. Then tripped over a stray essence stone. Face planted into the carpet with a dull thud. I groaned, still face down. Okay, maybe second lead. For now. 196. I eventually peeled myself off the floor, dignity slightly bruised, but spirit very much intact. After taking a quick shower and changing into something classy yet athletic, I headed out the door. The walk to my usual gym wasn't far, but it still gave me enough time to strut like a model on a runway. As I walked, I passed a few cadets in the hallway. They barely glanced at me. Rude, but I didn't blame them. They probably couldn't handle the aura I was radiating. Newly ascended, impossibly handsome, getting a bit sweaty already, as I was being overwhelmed by my heightened senses. A total package, so I made sure to nod at everyone, like a benevolent emperor gracing his peasants with his presence. "Sup," I said to a guy I'd never met. He blinked, confused. "You good, man?" he asked. I patted his shoulder like a war veteran bestowing ancient wisdom. "Never better. Keep working hard, or whatever it is you NPCs do." I left him behind before he could utter a response. Finally, I reached the gym. The reinforced steel doors slid open with a hiss, and I stepped inside, fully expecting dramatic orchestral music to play. None did, but that was okay. I had an active imagination. After booking a private training room, grabbing its keys, and walking through another set of automatic doors, I stepped inside. The room was standard: steel-lined walls, reinforced flooring, a few practice dummies, weighted weapons, reactive targets, and all the usual awakened training gear. I stood in the center of it all, cracked my neck, and muttered to myself, "All right. Let's see what I can do." I summoned my origin card with a thought. Matterweave. It shimmered into existence. The rune etched on its surface pulsed with a bright golden glow. It looked a bit different from what I remembered, more complex, as if the lines had grown into fractal patterns, weaving deeper into one another. Elegant, sophisticated. With a small grin, I lowered myself to the floor and touched it with my hand, moving my gaze toward the nearest training dummy. It was such a simple gesture. But the change was immediate. The metal beneath the dummy's feet vibrated, then melted upward into a smooth column, curving into a perfect bladed arc before snapping down like a guillotine and bisecting the dummy in half. I blinked. That was new. I hadn't even focused that hard. Just willed it. Before, I had to concentrate, picture it, grip the atoms, wrestle with the material like I was trying to force a square peg into a round hole. But now it felt like moving a finger. Like flexing a muscle. It was way too easy. And fast. For the next 30 minutes, I lost myself in experimentation. I sculpted spikes, blades, walls, and platforms, all with casual flicks of the wrist. But none of that was new. I could do it all before, just not with this level of ease or speed or efficiency. So, I began trying new things. Since reshaping matter came so naturally to me now, I started giving things more intricate forms as I transmuted them. I crafted makeshift arms out of stone, complete with fully functioning, moving fingers. I also tried making golems, but couldn't sustain them very well, so they fell apart. At one point, I made two stone hands fight each other. One punched the other a little too hard, demolishing it completely and sending shards flying everywhere. I panicked and ducked. Large fragments of stone clanged against the wall behind me. Okay, still working on the control. Reshaping matter so intricately took more finesse than I'd thought, and consciously moving it required even more. On a brighter note, my range had definitely improved. I used to max out at 15 meters before my sense of matter faded into static. But now my control radius had increased to at least 25 meters. I also felt more connected to my power. I could feel the vibrations in the floor, the grain of the wooden bench in the corner, and even the subtle density of the reinforced walls. It was as if the room was a body, and I was running my fingers down its spine. And that wasn't all. I kicked off my shoe, planted my bare foot on the ground, and tested a thought. The reinforced steel beneath my sole bent upward slightly, a tiny wave responding to my will. I stared. Number hands. Finally, no hands. I stomped again, and a small spike rose beneath my foot like a polite hiccup. My powers had always been bound to my hands. I needed them to feel the structure of matter and to guide its shape. That's why I rarely wielded any weapons and mostly fought barehanded, because my hands were necessary for my power. But now I could use anything. Hands, feet, elbows, hell, I pressed my forehead to the wall, and, yep, the metal flexed. With enough physical contact, I could manipulate matter using any and every part of my body. Yes, that too. I checked. Don't ask me why. Then came the most unsettling discovery. I looked at my arm, touched it with my other hand, and focused. The tiniest patch of skin, a sliver near my wrist, trembled. I felt flesh and blood. My own flesh and blood. I didn't reshape it, not because I was scared, but because I couldn't. It seemed that freely revamping organic matter was still out of my reach. But I felt something. It was slow, painfully slow. Like writing calligraphy underwater. But the matter seemed ready to move when I tried to move it. It responded to me. Even though I couldn't freely reshape it, I could still control organic matter to a degree. Ah, this is dangerous, I thought, glancing around. Spotting a wooden bench at the far end of the room, I walked up to it. Shattered it into splinters, picked up a broken wooden log, and tried the same thing again. This time, I didn't just sense it, I separated it. The log cracked apart, fibers peeling away, then wove themselves back together after a few minutes of effort, rough and tangled. I sat back, wide-eyed. Okay, organic matter. Low level, not fast, definitely not clean, but possible. This was awesome. My origin card had just handed me the beginner's toolkit for playing God. At a very slow frame rate. Still, I was impressed. I cracked my knuckles. Alright, Matterweave, you and me, we're gonna break so many Academy safety rules together. And then, as all great journeys begin, I promptly ran out of essence. Yeah, it turns out, the more intricate the transmutation, the more essence it consumed, especially when trying to control organic matter. My knees buckled. The platform beneath me gave out. The training dummy I'd shaped into a samurai turned back into a plain block of metal. And I face-planted into the floor with a heroic thud. Ow, I mumbled into the tile. From the ground, I lifted a hand and gave the air a weak thumbs up. Testing. Successful. Ego. Inflated again. Nose. Possibly broken. Yes, this was progress. 197. I stuffed the last of my clothes into the dimensional pocket of my robe. I moved with calm efficiency, not at all like someone who was preparing to enter a nightmarish dimension infested with twisted abominations and eldritch horrors. Done packing, I nodded satisfactorily to myself. A masterpiece of minimalist preparation. The robe I found in the High Priest's Vault of Ishtara was truly a lifesaver. While my peers would struggle to carry around large camping bags, I'd be walking elegantly and looking pretty. Not that I packed much, anyway. Just 2 shirts, 1 jacket, 3 sets of undergarments, some snacks, energy drinks, and a divine sword that a kid like me had no business possessing. Only essentials. I gave my room a final glance, then sighed dramatically, like I was already homesick, even though I hadn't even stepped out yet. Shaking my head solemnly, I left my apartment and headed down. Once outside the building, I took a campus taxi and arrived at one of the training grounds. The entire field was buzzing, literally. Hundreds of cadets were gathered in loose clusters, all dressed in the signature Academy combat vests with huge bags clinking at their backs. Some even had weapons strapped and freshly polished. A low drone of chatter filled the air, punctuated by nervous laughter and occasional screams as some overconfident cadets idiotically tried showing off their new cards and accidentally set things on fire. Yes, that happened more than once. The entirety of my batch was present here, all the current first years. 800 and something cadets. The full collection of future disasters. Some were hyped up, some were pale, some were already placing bets on who would cry first once we stepped into the spirit realm. And I just wanted to know when was the earliest we could take a nap after getting there. Hey, I was sleepy since I couldn't properly sleep the night before. Sue me. Samael Theosbane, a voice called out as soon as I walked through the eastern gate of the field. I turned to see a group of staff members holding glowing tablets. They must have been analyzing the team assignment logs. One of them, a woman with square glasses and the dead-eyed expression of someone fed up with her life, was looking straight at me. Yes, I asked. You've been reassigned to Squad 27, she said with a quick nod. Check your Academy emails to get your squad mates' names and contact info. Ah, right. Since I left my last team, Squad 9, also known as the team of main characters, I was automatically reassigned to a new one. I nodded, pulled out my phone, and walked away while hurriedly unblocking the Academy's account. Sure enough, there was indeed an email about my squad reassignment. I tapped it open and saw a chatroom link attachment. Yes, the Academy hosted private online chatrooms for squads. Each team got one. I never bothered logging into my last one. But the moment I joined this chatroom, I was greeted with a flood of old messages. Seemed like my new teammates were, chronically online. And very, very chatty. I didn't bother reading any of the chat history and was just about to ask where they were, when I noticed 2 members had already shared their live locations. Perfect. I shrugged and started following one of the pings. Looking back, I really should have checked their names first. It would have saved me a lot of embarrassment. But I didn't. Following the map, I walked past Squad 3 doing synchronized warm-ups like they were in a military parade. I walked past Squad 32 yelling at their ranged fighter for lighting someone's sleeve on fire. I walked past Squad 11, which seemed to consist entirely of archers. I paused briefly. How did that team even work? Eventually, I stopped in front of a small group sitting under the shadow of the bleachers. Squad 27, 4 cadets, all C rank, well equipped, laughing and chatting like they weren't about to be thrown into a godforsaken realm of unimaginable horrors. They looked up as I approached. And immediately frowned. Their laughter died. Their smiles withered. One of them, a tall, handsome guy with violet hair and sharp eyebrows, nudged the girl next to him and muttered something under his breath. She sighed. Another one, a short girl with green hair, gold piercings, and a permanent scowl, slowly muttered in half terror and half annoyance, "No. No way. Why is he here?" I looked behind me, then pointed to myself in confusion. Me. They all stared at me like I'd just asked for both their kidneys. I blinked. Did I bring the wrong vibes? No one laughed. Okay, tough crowd. This is Squad 27, right? I asked, trying again with a charming smile. I got reassigned. Figured I'd come say hi before we're all traumatized in the spirit realm together. The tall guy looked baffled. Say hi, what the fuck do you mean? You seriously don't recognize us? I squinted and gave them a once-over. The first girl, a brunette with dark eyes, had a vaguely familiar face. Kind of. Maybe. She seemed like a goth. The green-haired one's scowl rang a bell, but in a generic background character sort of way. The tall guy looked like he gave motivational speeches in his sleep. He seemed used to authority and leadership roles. But I could tell he wasn't a noble. And the fourth member, a quiet guy with yellowish hair, hadn't spoken a word. He was just calmly polishing a sniper rifle like this was a Sunday picnic. Did I meet you guys in the cafeteria or something? I guessed. Look, if I stole a plate from you, my bad. I get feral when I'm hungry. No, said the short girl, keeping her voice flat. You fought us, all of us, in that open challenge you issued. How do you not remember? I blinked again. Oh, I finally realized with a clap, the memory clicking into place. You're the guys who ganged up on me, and still lost. The goth girl gave me a look that suggested she was weighing the consequences of murder. Right, yes, okay. That explains the, I waved vaguely at their collective scowls, hostile looks you all are giving me. But guys, come on. It wasn't personal, I was just defending my title. You mocked us. The tall guy snapped. In front of a live audience. You insulted our strategy, teamwork, intelligence. And then posted memes about us on social media, the dark-haired girl added coldly. Memes, you bastard. Okay, yes, after that 10-on-1 fight, I might have made some memes. And posted them online. In my defense, I said, raising a finger, your healer couldn't even heal herself after I knocked her down. It was funny. Like, how useless could she even be, right? A dagger thunked into the dirt, 2 centimeters from my boot. I blinked at it. It was thrown by the dark-haired girl. I took a single step back. No, I wasn't scared. Shut up. Meanwhile, the green-haired girl had started sobbing in her hands. I was that healer, you jerk. Ah, come on. Okay, let's start over, I said with a cautious smile, taking another careful step back. Can we all just introduce ourselves again? You know, for bonding purposes. And also so I don't accidentally trash-talk another one of you in your face. I saw their expressions shift from mildly offended to unrestrained fury in real time. But before another dagger could be thrown at me, the air shifted. Literally, a gust of cold wind swept across the field like a storm of sharp razors, slicing through conversations and pulling everyone's attention toward the central platform. And then, she appeared. Celine Valkrin. Her hair, black as the sky on a starless night, flowed down her back like a river of ink. Her long gray coat billowed behind her like smoke. Her expression was unreadable, elegant yet confident, warm yet distant. She wasn't wearing her witch hat today. No dark circles under her eyes either. She actually looked rested, fresh. The entire field fell silent. Even Squad 27 stopped plotting my accidental demise. Celine didn't address us right away. She simply walked up the stone steps of the raised platform and stood there, letting her presence speak for itself as her gaze swept over all of us. Then, at last, she said softly, yet her voice reached every corner of the field, I won't waste your time. 198. I won't waste your time. The moment Celine started speaking, the winter wind died. No speeches. No sentimentality, she continued. You were admitted to Apex Academy because you have potential. Tomorrow, I will test if that potential has value. A quiet ripple passed through the crowd. For most of you, this will be your first time stepping into the spirit realm, she said. Not a simulation, not a dome, not one of those interactive virtual realities with cartoon mascots. A few cadets chuckled. She didn't. The spirit realm is older than mortals. Older than humanity. It has wiped out civilizations and devoured their worlds. It does not care for your technology. It does not recognize your rules. It does not obey the constructs of your meager logic. She let that sink in. Then tilted her head slightly. And it especially doesn't like children playing in its backyard. Someone near the front coughed in panic. I may or may not have taken a casual step behind the tall guy in my squad. You'll arrive at my night sanctuary, Celine continued, her tone even and crisp. You'll be given 28 hours to rest, scout the terrain where your test will be held, and reflect on how many of your overinflated egos mean absolutely nothing when faced with the unimaginable nightmares lurking there. I saw several cadets flinch. But Celine wasn't done yet. Don't worry, none of you will die, she added, like that was supposed to be comforting. Your test will be actually very simple. Capture the flag, like children, but with real consequences. One team wins, the rest lose. Not lives, but some of you might lose teeth. Some will lose pride, one or two might lose a limb. You'll be graded according to your performance. She smiled faintly. I've prepared you. I've taught you everything you need to know for this test, assuming you actually attended my classes. I might have imagined it, but I swear her eyes flicked toward me when she said that. Was that actually directed at me? That bitch. All that's left now is for you to prove yourselves. So, without further delay, she summoned a card, but not just any card. The moment it appeared, the air crackled. Veins of violet energy slithered through the card's edges, and the wind that had gone still now circled back, whirling across the field as if a storm had been waiting for this moment. The card soon began expanding. Vertically, horizontally, fluidly. It didn't just grow, it unfolded, bent, twisted, reshaped itself in the air strangely. In mere moments, it reached nearly 3 meters in height. Then, the center began to hollow out, curling inward like a spiral of shadows, revealing a dark vertical rift. A portal. That was an anchor card. It was a type of high-grade spell card capable of creating a stable portal link between two preset locations. This one had just opened the connection from here to, somewhere deep within Celine's personal domain, the Night Sanctuary. Meaning, the second anchor card, its pair, must have just activated on the other side. Celine stepped back. The link has been formed. The portal anchor at my sanctuary is now active. Enter after me according to your squad number. With that, she turned and stepped into the shadowy rift of her own creation, vanishing on the other side. And as she disappeared, we all collectively did what any group of trained teenage soldiers would do when faced with a gaping mouth into another dimension. We froze. The portal pulsed. The winter wind hissed. Someone sneezed. No one took a step. Then a disembodied voice, cold and calm, probably from a staff member with a megaphone, echoed across the field. Squad 1, enter. And just like that, the parade into horror began. Squad 1 jogged toward the portal in synchronized formation like they'd rehearsed it in front of a mirror for weeks. The leader even saluted before stepping through, which, honestly, felt like overkill. Squad 2. A girl from Squad 2 immediately started crying. Loudly. Her teammates embarrassedly dragged her in, whispering things like, "We trained for this, we bonded for this, please shut up." Next. Squad 3. They marched in military style, stiff and emotionless. Honestly, that was way cringier than the crying girl. Squad 4. One guy from their team tripped before stepping in, face planting mid-stumble and disappearing into the portal. I prayed for him. Squad 5. Ah yes. Squad 5 was my sister Talia's team. And of course, she was flanked by her two royal besties, Willem and Alice. Among them was also Ray Warner, one of the main characters. That idiot was recording himself, talking to his camera like he was the star of a fantasy vlog series. That idiot. The rest of the squads continued entering. Squad 11, the team that consisted only of archers, walked in with the flair of a boy band doing a dramatic slow-mo entrance. Their squad leader even winked at someone as he passed. That someone was not impressed. The whole thing went on for another 15 minutes. Some cadets prayed as they entered. Some swaggered in with forced bravado. Some looked like they were 2 seconds away from peeing themselves. While some lunatics looked like they'd been waiting for this moment their entire lives. Squad 27. And then, our moment arrived. So, anyone wants to hold hands? I asked, stretching like a lazy cat. The tall guy sighed and walked away, pretending I didn't exist. The goth girl followed without a word. The quiet sniper also stood up and joined them. The green-haired girl gave me a glare. Her eyes were bloodshot from crying earlier. How about you hold my boot? With your face. Damn, that was a solid comeback. I made a mental note to use it on someone later. One by one, they all entered. When it was my turn, I paused, gave the portal a long look, and let the cold wind ripple through my hair for dramatic effect. Then I stepped through. For a split second, everything turned black. But before I could even form a coherent thought, I was thrown out the other side. I stumbled forward, blinked, and halted. I felt it before I saw it. The world had changed. This wasn't Earth. This was something older. I could instinctively sense it. I found myself standing on the roof of a castle. No, not a rooftop. A summit. Massive obsidian black tiles stretched beneath my feet, etched with silver veins that pulsed like breath, like the castle was alive. The rooftop was impossibly broad, wide enough to host a military parade, a wedding, and a collective existential crisis at the same time. The air up here was thin and cold and heavy, and tasted like something dark and ancient. And overhead, Whoa, I muttered. The sky boiled with churning shades of ink and amethyst, flickering with violet flashes of distant lightning that never struck. Faint auroras danced like celestial ribbons above, casting eerie shadows across the castle's edge. It was the kind of night sky that seemed like it remembered the deaths of gods and the births of heroes, and wasn't impressed by any of it. It was the eternal night. I stepped forward, and the view hit me like a punch. From up here, I could see all of Night Sanctuary, the layered terraces, the spiraling bridges, and the glowing veins embedded in buildings that made it look like the city was painted with starlight. I saw people moving on the streets in the distance. I saw sentries, citizens, and large trucks gliding past cathedrals made of black stone and bone glass. It didn't feel like we had stepped into another world. It felt like we had stepped into a myth. The kind of myth whispered by old beings. The kind of myth that was made of dreams, or nightmares. And standing at the far end of the rooftop, there she was, the Witch Queen of the Eternal Night. The Zare Anish, Celine Valkrin. Her coat fluttered, and her hair lifted slightly in the wind that dared touch no one else. Her arms were crossed, and her back was facing us. She stood there watching her city like a ruler surveying her kingdom. Around me, more cadets began appearing. Some dropped to their knees. Some looked up with their jaws stupidly hanging in shock. Some were already whispering curses, and, what the hell is this place? On repeat, even the tough ones, the high-born nobles who'd been to the spirit realm before, stood like children who had just realized the world was far too big, and they were far too small. Just like that, we had arrived at the Night Sanctuary. 199. My father used to tell stories about this place. Okay, well, not to me. He told Talia. I just eavesdropped, but I won't unpack my daddy issues right now. Anyway, he used to say that the land of eternal night, where Celine's sanctuary now stood, was once known as the land of the dying sun. Why? Because it was a scorched, God-forsaken wasteland where the sun didn't give life. It took it. A place where the merciless light rained down from the heavens like judgment, burning everything that lived to. Smoldering ash. Everything, except them. A rare breed of elder and unholy spirit beasts. Twisted by the very flames that forged them. They were called soulwraiths. Born from the cremated bones of everything the dying sun devoured, soulwraiths rose like revenants, wielding the sun's might, the raw starfire that forged them. You couldn't kill them. Or at least, not easily. It was almost impossible. Those monsters possessed the closest thing to true immortality. Actually, they weren't just monsters. They were apex predators in a land designed to annihilate all life. An army of them was a waking nightmare for even the most elite heroes of humanity. That's why no one could ever conquer the land of the dying sun. But eventually, humanity had no choice. The soulwraiths started changing. They started evolving. At first, they were rare, lurking anomalies. Only a few dozen were spotted every year. They haunted the ruins, fed on heat and light, basked in the fury of their dying sun. But then, something shifted. They began to multiply. Fast. Settlements at the edges of the wasteland disappeared overnight. No screams. No bodies. No survivors. Just slagged walls and molten sand still hissing with ghost heat weeks later. Soon, they were spreading like wildfire. Every single living creature they burned rose from the ashes as one of them. As another soulwraith, as another sun-born horror. And the more of them there were, the hotter the dying lands became, unnaturally so. Researchers theorized the soulwraiths were awakening something. Or worse, becoming something else. Some believed they were trying to create a new sun, a second star, like the one that gave birth to them. Had they succeeded, entire neighboring regions of the spirit realm would have been reduced to scorched husks. It would have become one big burning death zone. A wasteland of ash and melted sky. It would have crippled humanity's advance. Set our conquest back by decades. But that was when Selene arrived. Without any armies. Without any banners. Just by herself. Alone. She walked into a land where sunlight was a death sentence, and simply turned it off. Some say the battle raged for 6 days. Others say it never even began, that she simply whispered for the night to fall, and the night obeyed. Either way, when it was over, the sun never rose again. Darkness claimed the sky. The soulwraiths fell into slumber the moment the dying sun vanished. Their connection to its light was severed. And Selene built her sanctuary atop the ash-covered heart of the soulwraith's former domain. She buried the surviving monsters into the very foundation of her new city. Now those monsters whisper in the walls. Now they howl beneath her throne. Now they sleep under the land of eternal night. And that was how Night Sanctuary came to be. Now, after all that, you'd think Selene would be a legend. A myth in motion, a name sung in every hunter hall across the world. But that wasn't the case. Why? Well, first of all, she never wanted the spotlight. So she went out of her way to avoid it. Second, by the time she founded her sanctuary, my father, Arthur Kaiser Theosbane, had already conquered a region even more dangerous, known as the Grave of Old Gods. His feat overshadowed hers. I suppose he just had a better PR team. Still, I grew up hearing and reading stories of Selene's adventures. She was one of the few people my father respected as a hunter. Establishing the Night Sanctuary was only one of her many crowning achievements. She had proved, time and again, why she would be remembered as one of humanity's greatest champions. And for that, I idolized her throughout my childhood. Not as much as I idolized my father, of course, but still. Enough. She was, in my eyes, a true hero. But it's like they say, I muttered, never meet your heroes. Because now I knew the truth. I knew the side she'd chosen. I knew Selene Valkyrin was aligned with the Syndicate. And that made her my enemy. Ah, did you say something, my lord? I looked up. The old shopkeeper was fidgeting with his fingers, looking at me the way most lowborns look at nobles, with that uneasy mix of fear and something close to reverence. Nothing, I said, shaking my head and handing him 2 cards I had selected from his shop. How much are these? The old man adjusted his spectacles, politely took the cards from me, and began appraising them. He replied after a beat, 200 grand each, my lord. Wow, so expensive, almost 500,000 credits. Then again, it was not surprising. Both of them were rare grade. One was an item card called Mirror Cloak. It could summon a magical cloak capable of reflecting a single spell or projectile aimed at the wearer back to the attacker. It needed to be resummoned after one use. The other was a transformation card called Scaled Hide, which temporarily turned the user's skin into a layer of semi-draconic scales. Great for reducing physical damage, and unsurprisingly effective against elemental attacks too, especially fire. Both were solid defensive cards. Both worked well against attacks from anyone up to B rank. And I desperately needed some proper defense. Because my last defensive card was shattered weeks ago, and since then, I'd also leveled up. Normally, I would have grabbed something from the Academy's vault, but during exam season, the vault was sealed. Because obviously, nothing screams strategic timing like cutting off student access to essential life-saving tools before a life-threatening test. And tomorrow, well, tomorrow I'd be fighting a lot of people. So, the real question was, which one should I buy? I had enough money to buy both, but I didn't think it was a good idea to load up 2 defensive cards into my soul arsenal since I'd rarely ever use them together. Besides, the 2 were good in different scenarios. Scaled Hide was better for close quarters fights. Mirror Cloak was a perfect counter against long-range ambushes. I stood there for a moment, rubbing my chin, weighing the options. Then I made my decision. I bought Scaled Hide. And Mirror Cloak. Yes, I bought both. Yes, I'm indecisive. Sue me. I paid the old shopkeeper, who looked both grateful and mildly terrified by the number on the receipt, and stepped out of the card and relic shop. The bell above the door gave a tired jingle as I passed through. Outside, the night sanctuary was as breathtaking as ever. The sky stretched above like a suffocating ocean of ink, occasionally flickering with bright flashes of violet lightning that never struck anywhere. There were no stars. There was no moon, only a dim twilight cast by glowing crystalline vines embedded in the sides of the buildings. The silver vines shimmered coldly, blanketing the city in a soft glow that made every shadow appear deeper and every figure seem more dramatic. This was a city draped in shades of black and white. This was the city of eternal night. The architecture here was elegantly ancient. Gothic towers rose like obsidian spires, windows were adorned with stained glass mosaics, and sharp steeples pierced the sky like fangs. Stone bridges arched between rooftops, threading the towers together like a web. The people here also dressed to match the scenery, wearing garments like long coats, lace veils, wide-brimmed hats, and cloaks that swept behind them like shadows. Blacks, grays, and deep purples could be seen everywhere, as if the city had an unspoken dress code and everyone just went along with it. And yet, despite the weird aesthetic, the city felt as alive as any other. Street vendors shouted over one another, children laughed and chased each other through the alleys, and the sound of boots clacking against cobblestones filled the background. I watched as essence-powered carriages and sleek black trucks glided by. Sentries with animal skull masks patrolled the walkways, while wealthy elites in velvet-lined cloaks stepped out of their black sedans. One vendor nearby loudly claimed his glowing potions would boost your stamina in under 10 seconds. Which was, obviously, total nonsense. Or was it? I kind of wanted to try it now. A few kids dashed past me, swinging their plastic swords and yelling dramatic battle cries as if they were the heroes of some epic saga. Near the central plaza, a street musician was playing a slow tune on a glass harp. The sound was catchy, delicate, and utterly haunting. Truly, this dark city had its charm. Too much charm, if I were being honest. I wanted to explore it more. Really, I did, but if I were being even more honest, I just wanted to crawl into my bedchamber instead and sleep until it was time for the dinner banquet. After all, tomorrow's test was going to be stressful. I needed every bit of rest I could get before that. So, I decided to head back to the night castle, return to my assigned bedchamber, and get a good few hours of sleep. But of course, the universe wasn't about to let me have something even as simple as rest. No, it had just to inject unnecessary drama and chaos into my life, whether I wanted it or not. Oh, come on, I sighed. Seriously, I hadn't even properly crossed the central plaza when a girl stepped in front of me, blocking my path. She had lush black hair and golden eyes as bright as the sun. Oh, what a coincidence meeting you here, she said in a tone that was far too sweet to be sincere. Hello, baby brother. 200. Against the dark backdrop of the Gothic city, my sister's golden eyes glowed like firelight in the night. She flashed her signature smirk, the one that always suggested she believed she was the superior twin. Her tied-up hair swayed with every step as she walked toward me, stopping just inches away. Then that smirk deepened. You're not heading back to the castle, are you? Seriously, you've always been like this. Even when we used to visit Central, you'd hole yourself up in the monarch's mansion. I've told you 100 times, that behavior is not healthy. I gave her a flat look. Oh, really? I wonder why I did that. Certainly not because every time I went outside with you, you made it your mission to verbally abuse me until I started crying. An amused glint flickered in her eyes. That's slander, she said airily, waving a hand. I never verbally abused you. I just described your personality accurately. Loudly, in public, with colorful metaphors. Right, I muttered, rolling my eyes and stepping aside. I was done entertaining her. But before I could walk past, she stepped in front of me again, blocking my path. I glared at her, which, of course, only seemed to amuse her more. Besides, why are you holding such an old grudge? If you really want a reason to hate me that much, I can give you a fresh one. She leaned in, stretching her smile until it was all teeth. And I'm not cowardly enough to do something like burning your clothes behind your back. Oh, no, whatever I do, I'll do it to your face. I blinked slowly, then, even slower, curled my lips into a smirk of my own, one that made me look utterly shameless and completely unapologetic. Leah, if you're referring to the time everything in your wardrobe spontaneously combusted, believe me, I know nothing about it, I said, placing a hand over my heart in mock sincerity. After all, no culprit was ever caught. Finally, that infuriatingly smug look on Talia's face faltered, replaced by a furious one. She looked like she was about to lash out and grab my throat, but before she could, another voice cut through the air behind me. Stop bullshitting, Sammy. The whole academy knows it was you. It's practically an open secret. I frowned slightly and turned around, only to find Princess Alice gracing me with her presence. Her hair, so vividly red it looked like her skull had been set ablaze, was styled in tight box braids that suited her well. Her equally red eyes gleamed like embers in the dark. Standing beside her was her shadow, her twin brother, Prince Willem. While she flanked my right, he casually blocked my left. His fiery red hair was tousled in that artfully messy way that made it seem like he woke up looking that handsome. His eyes matched his sister's in brightness and mischief. And naturally, a stupid grin was plastered on his face, as if he knew he was about to enjoy this. I sighed like dealing with these three clowns was physically exhausting. Because it really was. Princess Alice folded her arms. Honestly, I expected more finesse from you. But arson, really, Sammy, that's so petty. Oh, please, I said dryly. If I really wanted to traumatize you all, I'd have laced your clothes with itching powder. Talia gasped, scandalized. You wouldn't dare. I absolutely would, I scoffed, then turned to Alice with a wicked grin. Besides, Princess, you were long overdue for a wardrobe upgrade anyway. I saw your pink lingerie. It was so old-fashioned, even my grandma wouldn't have worn it. Alice's face suddenly turned redder than her hair. And for the first time since we were kids, I actually heard her stutter. Oh, Sammy, that wasn't mine. I blinked, then blinked again, then slowly turned to Willem. He was pointing behind me, barely holding in a fit of silent laughter. I started sweating, and turned, very, very slowly, to Talia. She was pinching the bridge of her nose, looking equal parts embarrassed and angry while muttering, "I'm going to kill him," on repeat. Oh, that was hers. Fuck, I cursed, mortified. Now I'm the one traumatized. Thankfully, Alice cleared her throat and, in a rare act of mercy, redirected the conversation. Anyway, she said, brushing her braids over one shoulder, we came looking for you. Oh, joy, I deadpanned. Let me guess. You missed me. Willem gave me finger guns. Every second, bestie, Talia groaned. No one missed you. We're here to warn you. About what? I asked, narrowing my eyes. Because if it's a fight you guys are after, you'll have to wait at least until tomorrow's test. I have plans tonight, mostly involving sleeping and not talking to any of you. Talia sneered. Oh, don't worry, you'll get that fight as well. But for now, we're here to inform you that we've decided the rules for the title match you promised us. Rules? I raised an eyebrow. I'd assumed she'd go for a good old-fashioned one-on-one. Or maybe a chaotic three-way brawl. But if she was talking about rules, then clearly, something was brewing. She had something else in her mind. According to Academy regulations, Talia began explaining smoothly, if the ace challenges a cadet with the title on the line, the cadet gets to choose the format of the match. I'm aware, I replied, growing more curious to see where this was going now. Alice picked it up from there. So instead of a duel, we've chosen a mock war. I froze for a second. Mock war, as in, we gather cadets and appoint them as soldiers and generals. Willem grinned. Oh, no, Sammy. Where's the fun in that? Instead, the cadets will choose us. Voluntarily. It's basically a vote. They'll decide who they want as their ace, and whoever they pick, that's who they'll fight for in the mock war. I clenched my jaw, trying, and utterly failing, to look unfazed. This was bad, very bad, because these three buffoons would be fighting together, while I'd be fighting alone. And given my charming reputation, I doubted anyone would want to rally behind me. Alice and Willem were grinning now, clearly enjoying the subtle panic bleeding onto my face. Talia chuckled. Oh, you get it now, don't you? There are around 400 nobles and gentry in our batch. They'll fight for us. We've already made sure of it. And that's our minimum force. Then there are the commoners, some will flock to us for favor, others out of sheer hatred for you. So even if your reputation wasn't already in cinders, we'd still outnumber you. Ah, damn it, she wasn't wrong. Even if I hadn't burned half the bridges at the academy, these three would still have commanded more cadets. This wasn't a battle. It was a trap, a setup, a checkmate before the first move. If it had been one-on-one match, hell, even 3-on-1, I could have handled it. Maybe they knew that. Maybe they knew I still had a shot, even against all three of them coming at me together. So instead of taking the risk, they changed the rules. After all, why gamble on a fair fight when you can rig the whole game in your favor? I swallowed hard and forced a scornful smile. Really, Leah, this is your master plan? Hiding behind numbers. And here I thought you had more faith in yourself. Talia's smile returned, a slow, venomous thing that never touched her eyes. Oh, I do have faith. That's why I'm using every advantage available to me. I'm also exploiting your greatest weakness, your isolation. You remember what you said after winning the 10-on-1 title match. Death won't ask you for your name or titles. She tilted her head mockingly. But in real war, it's not about lone heroes. It's about armies. A king without an army is just a fool with a crown. And with the whole world against you, you'll fall. Ouch, Willem winced theatrically, clutching his chest. She turned your own words against you, Sammy. That's gotta hurt. Alice's voice was softer, but no less smug. And don't act like you wouldn't have done the same thing if the roles were reversed. I wouldn't have, I said, straightening my back. Because I don't need to. That earned me a trio of skeptical stares. Sure you'll say that now, Alice muttered. Willem smirked. You sure you don't want to beg a little? Maybe cry a little? Your pity sobs were kinda charming when we were kids. I met their eyes, one by one. No snark, no smile, just calm indifference. Thanks for the warning, I said flatly. You've done your homework, I'll give you that. Willem arched a brow. But, no but, I said, shaking my head. You're right, my pride and arrogant demeanor has isolated me. I'm hated. That's why I'll be outnumbered, and none of that will still be enough to save you. I'll still win. They went quiet all of a sudden. Just a flicker of hesitation flickered in their eyes. Barely there, but I caught it. Talia let out a low laugh, reached into her coat, and pulled out a cigarette. God, I'm going to enjoy shattering that overconfidence of yours. With that, she began to walk past me. Then stopped, turned to me, and held out the cigarette. Smoke? She asked. I stared at her. No, I quit before coming to the academy. Oh, I see, she said, surprised. A thoughtful look crossed her face as she dropped the cigarette to the ground, and crushed it beneath her heel. Then I'll quit too. And just like that, she walked off. Alice blinked. Wait, what was that? I didn't hear the rest. I just stood there, letting the silence close in around me. A mock war, huh? She really outplayed me. She put aside her pride. Calculated my faults. Found the surest path to victory, and took it. Fine, I muttered, turning and walking away. Alone, silent, but completely certain. Let them have their numbers. Let them have their plans. Let them laugh. They wouldn't be laughing when the war starts. And when it ends, they'd never laugh again.